On today's episode, Mike and Ryan interview the owners and head brewer of GravCap Brewery in Oxford, Michigan. Cheers. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brewthers-In-Law podcast, where beer is thicker than water. In this podcast, we take a journey in discovering home brewing, craft beer, and more. My name is Ryan, and with me, as always, is Mike. Hi, Mike. How's it going?
I'm stoked.
I'm very excited. We have with us a wonderful family. I can say that because you guys are all related. We have Tom, Theresa, and Evan. How you guys doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. We are glad to be here.
Yeah, very excited. Glad to be in a building.
I'm about to say yes.
Enjoying food and drink.
We are being safe, so no worries about that. We're taking our safety first. So the first thing we're going to go about is your last name is Wrobel. We know some Wrobels, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is there a relation or you just don't know?
Not sure. We've had several family that lived in Warren at one point. He's possibly a distant cousin.
So well, just to provide a little bit of background, this is a conversation that happened off the air, but we discovered our uncle, who also started a brewery, is a Wrobel. They are Wrobels who have started a brewery. If that is your last name, just give it a shot.
Just
luck is
brew something.
Yeah, not luck, I guess, but there's something in the genes apparently that makes successful brewers.
All right, so you want to go?
No, you can
Okay.
go.
All right, so we are going to do our first sip, and for you guys, our first sip is just an icebreaker. We talk about something that's related to what the topic is, and we're experiencing some great craft beer. I want to know, what is your first craft beer love? First craft beer you fell in love with, and just to see, because I know we got slight age differences here. I mean, we got sons, we got parents, so I would like to see what everyone kind of says. I'm gonna go. Let's go with Tom first.
Sure.
What was the first craft beer you fell in love with?
My favorite would probably have to be Hooma from Shorts.
Oh, that's a great one. Okay.
We had a little place up there, and we used to hang out when they were just tiny, and there were 8 seats at the bar. They made pizza in a little tray on the countertop, and it was quaint. And yeah, we used to go in there and really enjoy it.
Nice.
Take a growler or two home, and yeah, definitely my first favorite.
All right, Evan, you're next in line.
All right. So I used to buy a Zaka IPA. It was 15 cans for only like $18. It was really cheap, 7%.
Yeah.
So I used to buy that every other day. When it came out, it was like a seasonal release.
Okay.
And they stopped making it.
Oh, I hate
So
when you do that.
I actually emailed them many times asking them if they'd make it. Like, so what's the deal? Are you guys? It's just not in production anymore. You don't have the hop contract with these Zaka hops, and they wouldn't give me any straight answers. They're just like, we've moved other beers into production and moved that one out. So now they have that Moon Sugar, I think it's called, IPA.
Okay. All right.
R.I.P. I think you brought up a great point, which is when it's the first craft beer you fell in love with, often there's a price as a consideration.
Theresa.
So this is kind of going to sound promotional, but I'm a wine drinker.
Okay.
I like wine, and although we bought this brewery, so I started to drink our beers. I like Pilsner beers too. Unlike that Bud Light.
Oh yeah, we all go.
Yeah. So then Evan started making the Never Ending, and of course I had to try every beer, right? And I just fell in love with the Never Ending because it was grapefruity, and I like a Sauvignon Blanc, which is also grapefruity. So the Never Ending was super grapefruity, and I love it. That's my favorite beer.
The Never Ending, that's an IPA. Is that a NEPA or is this a regular IPA?
It's a NEPA.
NEPA? Okay.
I might have
East
to
Coast IPA, and I'd say it's not hazy, and it doesn't really have, it has too many IBUs to me.
I'm about to say, I believe that's what I'm drinking too, and it doesn't look very hazy, but I mean, it's very delicious.
I
It's very
like that.
delicious. Yes.
I've done a lot of listening to some other brewing podcasts about New England IPA, and I've heard that it's like the haze is not the point; it just kind of happens.
Yes.
So if you can make one that tastes like a New England IPA and is clear, that's a win in my book. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I think it's a beautiful beer.
Well, Mike, I'm going to ask you.
Oof. So it depends on what you consider craft beer.
Okay.
I would say the first like sort of non-American lager beers that I ever really started to fall in love with were like some of the Irish Reds, like Killian's and Smithwick's. And then if you count, again, for me, this was all sort of descending or increasing price points. So it's with the stuff you could get for fairly inexpensive, at the bar and stuff. After that, probably, I don't know if they make it anymore. I think they do, but it was the Leinenkugel. It's like Fireside Nut Brown.
They do make that still, actually.
Okay, yeah. It's funny. I loved that beer. I couldn't get enough of it. And then I didn't drink it for a really long time, but I got fully immersed in craft beer, and I came back to it years later. I don't even really like it anymore, but it was a gateway. It really was. It sort of was the first darker beer that I really remember liking, and sort of just kind of got me into the idea of trying things that weren't lager.
Well, mine is it's a pumpkin beer, actually, and we talked about this on our pumpkin episode that we did. It's Ichabod from New Holland. I grew up drinking the Bat Light because that's my family. Corona because that's my family. I love Guinness. It was like probably the first actual beer I fell in love with was Guinness.
Yeah, not craft, but delicious.
Craft beer that I actually first fell in love with was probably Ichabod, and it was sad because my buddy who I was living with at the time told me to try it, and it's like one of the first few craft beers I had, and he said it's like the best pumpkin beer he's ever had, so I went and got it. And I got the 6-pack in my hand, I'm carrying it, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out. And all but 2 break. So I only had 2 left. So we each had 1. I'm just like, oh, this is so good. This is such a good pumpkin beer. And I'm not a huge pumpkin beer guy, but like it was probably the first one I actually did fall in love with though.
I feel like there's a sort of scarcity thing going on too. Like you bought 6 and only got 2. Evan, your favorite like disappeared and went away.
Mine's never ended.
I'm about to say, you got a
you're in
continuous.
good shape. Yeah, you've got a steady supply.
It's called never ending for a reason.
Exactly.
Right. So to kind of to piggyback off of that, I want to just start with a little bit of general history. So you guys are based in Oxford, Michigan, which for anyone not in the Michigan area is just sort of up about 40. We're probably 45 minutes from us, probably like an hour north of Detroit, somewhere abouts. I am simplifying, but do you guys just want to tell us a little bit about kind of your history and how you decided to open up this brewery?
Well, good question. I mean, everybody likes brewing, like at least, certain groups of home brewers, and have done it for years. We started way back when, before Evan was born, I was brewing beer. I don't know, I kind of shelved it for a little while when the kids got older and ended up moving out this way. But then picked it back up again and was doing it for quite a while. I guess, I don't know, I stumped. But yeah, and just coming to breweries and, being able to bring beer home, sometimes I'd just rather do that than brew my own. And that was the case with this place that we ended up here with. This was a failed brewery. And when they closed, I was really disappointed. Couldn't come up here and just get my growlers filled anymore.
Falling down.
This
was falling down.
Yeah,
Okay.
This one was falling down. And then they closed up all of them.
Oh, they had a place in Warren as well.
Yeah. That's
I've been there.
from
Yeah, I've been
Warren.
there.
Right.
They did some weird things, I will say. Like they did an infuser where you put like chocolate inside. It's like on a tea diffuser, so you put chocolate nibs inside of it, and you flip it over with whatever beer you wanted, and let it diffuse the flavors into the beer itself. And they did you did chocolate, you did dried fruits. We were there at closing time, my wife and I, and they did Flamin' Hot Cheetos in one of the beers. And I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. It wasn't half bad. Like I would not go out of my way for it, but it wasn't disgusting.
This is a unique experience.
Yeah.
Huh? But yeah. So then when they ended up closing shop up here, my daughters happened to be up here the night before. Dad, the brewery closed. And I'm like,
And you're just like,
man. I'm like, great. Now I got to go back to brewing beer again. So Yeah, because it was so much easier just to walk home with the growler.
Yeah.
And when we found a contact for the guy who owned the building, you know, he said, if anything ever happens, let us know. And yeah, we got that call. He's like, hey, what do you guys think? Why don't you come up here and take a look at the place? And so they did a fantastic job with the layout. All the inspections were done. So we just kind of slid right in here and took over. And,
It was a
purchased all the equipment.
turnkey brewery.
Yeah.
It was all set up for us. We just walked in. All we had to do was,
And we really benefited from their planning. You know, we have no idea how we'd set our own brewery up, and to have everything laid out the way it is, it's really nice.
It was almost like we won the $1 million.
Yeah,
You know,
that's like
it
the
was
lotto
like,
right there.
wow,
Yeah, for sure.
We've always wanted to do this, and here we have this opportunity.
Yeah, I've got to assume that sort of shaved a lot off your initial learning curve, at least having like the kind of the technical and, like you said, sort of the layout of things, kind of having a solid start on that already.
Right.
So what? I'm gonna hop on your thing because it is interesting to me. For those who don't know, what came up with GravCap? How did you come up with the name?
Well, so Oxford itself was once considered the gravel capital of the world.
Okay.
They used to, in fact, they still do mine gravel here. It's sold for the next 3 years because of all the Michigan road construction projects that are
That we
being
all
done.
have. Yep.
And so we're just kind of tapping into the town's history, you know, with the gravel and everything. And we initially started Gravel Capital. We've shortened the name to GravCap. We've got a lot of butchered names, and in fact, people are still, we've been called Gravel City Granite. This, the fire department calls us the Pit. But it's
I love that.
yeah, it was
But
just
we made it
nice
more
to.
trendy, GravCap.
Yeah, no,
Really
it's
good.
really
Sure.
good.
I think that's cool, yeah. But I do, you know, I think you guys have struck a pretty good balance of sort of being, it's snappy and memorable, but I really like the fact that you sort of made the identity of the city part of the identity of your brewery. I think that is really cool.
Oh yeah, and at one point the gravel here produced all the gravel that covered all the roads east of the Mississippi. Every single road that was made was from these gravel pits in Oxford.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah, weird industry, but there it is.
Every
I feel
little
like
small
that's
town has
just
its
a
niche.
northern Michigan thing, though. Like as you're driving up 75, or like when you get into some of the weird, like our family owns like property up kind of past Rose City and Mile, and you get it's like the turkey capital of the United States or whatever. It's like everyone's got their little claim to fame.
Oh yeah, there's gravel days. I mean, not any longer, but there used to be gravel days, like parades and
festivals.
fairs and festivals,
Oh, wow.
all that.
We have
for
a whole
years.
poster actually hanging up on the wall over there. It's like 5 cents for hot air balloon ride or something.
Wow.
It's stupid cheap.
Or gravel pit
Or
tours.
25 cents. I
They
think.
had gravel pit
Yeah, gravel
tours
pit
where during the fairs they'd have gravel pit tours.
What was the? It's got a clown on it. What's the clown's name? That's
Bozo the Clown.
Bozo the Clown.
That was in the 70s. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the front picture on it.
That's hilarious.
Well, you guys are obviously child parents. How is it
Child,
doing?
I think,
child.
maybe.
Well,
Like,
it's still child.
for
I'm
the
a child.
record, Evan is
I'm not
Still
a
a
child.
grown
Some of
adult.
us.
I'm a man.
He's still child, trust me.
Oh wow! Hey, don't say that on the podcast.
How is it as a family business? Because I know a few breweries and like we know Kuhn, and it's like they don't have the kids involved, but like I think the grandfather kind of has slowed down a little bit, and one of his older sons has kind of taken it over, and I know a few other breweries that is as a team they work together. I've never seen it as a family business. How does that usually work out?
Multi-generational
Do they
family
ground you
business.
if you do the wrong beer? You misdo the beer, you're grounded for
Really
a week?
leaning into
No,
the kid.
I mean-
I know, right?
We take the internet away for you.
The worst.
He doesn't live with us any longer because of this.
Yeah. No, I'm moving out. You guys are too
Well,
much.
he's with you guys all day at work right now.
Right,
So
right.
So
Oh, yeah.
I would be with them all day, and then I'd go home, and then it's just like normal home life. I
Right.
don't know. The lines kind of blend. It's like it's almost like a second home here,
Okay.
I guess. Well, we all want what's best for the brewery, so inevitably we butt heads because we think one thing is best, and the other person thinks the other thing is best.
Yeah.
So we argue about that. but inevitably she wins. So.
I
Moms
was going to
usually
say
do.
that. We argue, mom wins. We move on.
And then him and I argue about the brewing process. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's this. You're-
Do you find that, like, do some of those arguments come as a result of, like, you starting home brewing in kind of, because Tom, you said you've been home brewing for a long time. Is it that you guys just kind of have different norms for mentoring it at different times, or?
Oh
for
yeah, we were
fermentation
both
times?
totally different brewers. You know what the types we did, and even I was just not into the grain. I was an extract brewer. It was
Same.
much simpler, much quicker.
Right,
I could do 2 batches in an hour of extract. Him, 3 hours for 1 batch. I just didn't have that 3 hours laying around. So
No, he's a scratch everything. You know,
Yeah.
he's gonna cook. He's gonna cook from scratch. If he's gonna brew.
I
it's
used,
like
I used to be
simple.
like that when I cooked, but it's just easier to, I don't know, like open a can of
Well, now you're learning.
tomato
See, I do a mix, so I usually start
Well,
with like a base.
now you're spending so much time brewing from scratch, you can't also cook from scratch.
Yeah.
That's asking.
Yeah,
for a lot.
exactly. Just throw something in the crock pot, walk away,
Yeah,
go
it's-
brew,
oh,
come
crock
home,
pot's
it's
favorite.
ready.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, yeah, because I know I've noticed, like, I started brewing in college, which is getting to
usual.
be a depressing depressingly long time ago. But you know, then I took a hiatus for even like 5 or 6 years, and the differences there were astounding. Like brew in a bag was fairly newfangled and not really accepted when I was brewing in college. My roommate had a really nifty like all grain system that he had built himself out of coolers and stuff. And when we got back into it, now it's like tons of people do. So that's what my wife and I do. We do brew in a bag. Because, you know, I was not about to build one of those systems, but
all the extra stuff you need.
but he insisted on it, so I never really did the extract thing. So I sort of, for me, it would have felt like a weird change to stop using grain. Now I know Ryan started brewing with extract in college, and he stuck with it.
Well, I do like a
Does it-
nice mix. So like I do usually like a pale malt base,
Right.
and then I add my other things on top of it for my extra flavors. And so that's a brew in a bag. So I literally dip it in. On
I'll
top
say
of
the
stuff.
extract you can never get quite as light as you can with some of the grain, but you know what? It works with my style, what
Yeah.
I want to make.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right, yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's a really important point, that it's, you know, it's like, it's not that either doesn't work, it's just there are sort of different strengths.
Yeah.
And you sort of close some doors and open some. So, Evan, sort of working off of that, did you, when you started brewing on a larger scale for the brewery compared to your home brewing days, did you notice, you know, does sort of buying everything in bulk change the way you have to think about recipe design compared to just going to your local homebrew store and picking up, you know, 2 ounces of this, an ounce of that?
No, it didn't really change the way I thought about brewing, I guess. So the question is,
Just like, so, but, you know, basically now I assume everything's on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And I imagine that, like, when you guys buy ingredients, you do that on a larger scale as well. I'm just curious whether
oh
that,
yeah, I see what
you
you're
know,
saying.
like, do you have
Yeah.
to simplify? Do you have more options now that, you know, you sort of got a bigger operation?
So-
How did sort of going pro change
Yeah.
your brewing process, if at all?
So if you want to make a new batch of beer, you have to pretty much nail it the first time because you
Yeah.
have to sell it. It's got to make money at least. So when you buy the specialty malts, like you're buying at a homebrew store, you're only buying like 10 ounces here, 5 ounces there. But if I want to buy like commercially from like BSG or Breeze, what have you, I got to buy a whole 50-pound bag for, say I only need 2 pounds of it in the batch. Well, I'm stuck with another 48 pounds.
Right.
This malt, I actually have just a ton of random malt scattered in there that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Maybe I'll do a 5-gallon batch of just this, make a smash beer with some weird specialty malt. Like we had a ton of honey malt. I ended up making a 5-gallon batch of honey malt with fresh Chinook hops, and it ended up tasting like caramel corn for some reason.
Jack.
Yeah, it tasted like Cracker
It was
Jack.
like,
Yeah, wow.
you took Cracker
You
Jack.
say that's a lot of honey malt. Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
It was really
Yeah.
nice.
My next question is, and we kind of talked about this before that we started recording, but what adjustments have you made with COVID going on right now?
And
I-
you guys were fairly freshly opened when.
Yeah. We'd only been in business for 5 months before the first shutdown happened.
Oh,
We've been in
jeez.
business during COVID months or during quarantine months longer than actual months.
Right. You've had more pandemic business than normal business.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got a canner, so we were sending 4-packs, and we did delivery
Oh, nice.
during the shutdown.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people do
So,
that.
Yeah, my all-purpose guy over here was our beer delivery man. And
I wondered about that. I saw the picture of him on the website, and it
Yeah.
said like, "This is Evan, our beer delivery guy," and I was like, "Isn't that Evan the brewer?"
It's Evan the brewer, Evan the server, Evan
Beer delivery
the
guy.
delivery guy. Yeah.
Evan,
Evan's
front house
even beer
manager.
tending up front here. So
And now actually was going to be my next question. Like, what have you adjusted to still have business besides delivering? Did you guys allow? I know some places allowed you in the door if you were just picking up a keg or picking up a growler or something like that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, walk in just like any restaurant was able to do their carry-out
Yeah,
service.
okay.
So, yeah, carry-out.
Okay.
Any kind, yeah. Growler fills, cans to go, or wine, whatever they wanted. Curbside if they wanted. Yeah. But, or delivery.
Okay.
It was really, it worked. You know.
We did more
kept us.
online. We did a lot more online.
Yeah, we did build a
promotional things,
website
like-
Yeah.
with everything on it
Oh,
as
that's
far as
cool.
all our products.
Nice. That's very nice.
We had like Boxo beer. We had 24 Advent Day for Christmas, a case of beer.
Oh,
Nice.
that's a great idea. Yeah, we've done like our families have done a beer vent calendar. If it's like all these like German beer, you can get it at Costco.
Oh yeah.
And it was really fun, and I think those things are starting to catch on.
Yeah.
That's a
We
Yeah.
keep
great
saying
idea.
actually like Powers needs to get together and be like, okay, we have all these local breweries in Michigan, get one from each one, put it together in Advent, and done.
Yeah.
You sell it like hotcakes.
Yeah.
We keep saying this, but
Yeah.
Powers doesn't want to listen to us.
That's a really. But yeah, it's a really cool idea. So yeah, it sounds like it sort of forced you guys to be a little bit resourceful in terms of like adapting your kind of product offerings, how you're packaging the beer, to be things that were kind of more almost like carry out, almost like sort of longer term, something like an advent calendar. It's not a growler; it's something that's going to last you a month.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. We also we're trying to push the distribution too, because even though we've only been open really, for a short period of time, we're really looking at distributing. So we have a couple of places that we're starting to distribute now. So
That's good.
Some
That's good.
stores
That's
out
great.
I think
there.
that's a hard part to get into, just because I know a few breweries have been around forever, and like they're just now starting to distribute a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know what the difficulty is getting into
I'm
it.
assuming for some it's just a kind of an aesthetic choice.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you
It
guys
has a
can.
whole other layer of complexity of what we have to do to get something out the door.
True. I guess they do.
Label
It's such a
approval
standard.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you have to reach X amount of beer every single time. If you don't, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
Right.
we don't do that yet.
Yeah.
So we're allowed to do 2,000 barrels per year distribution until self-distribution. Once we reach that point, we have to sign on with a distributor themselves.
Okay.
And that doesn't include in-house sales. So,
Okay.
and we're going to take advantage of that until we have to move to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a challenge with that is consistency, just making sure that we have it right. So sometimes we will not even can it because it's not exactly the same as the last one.
Sure,
to distribute
yeah.
it, so that is definitely.
That's an
another
interesting
challenge.
thing I didn't really think about. That yeah, it's like when you honestly, if I go to a brewery and I have two batches on draft of the same beer and they're a couple months apart and they're a little different, I might not notice as much. But like when you go to, or I might think, oh well, this is like must be fresh on tap, or this must be an old keg or whatever. When you go to the store, you buy a can of something, you expect a much more consistent product.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're working to get to that level. Like, so sometimes we won't distribute it to the same store that we've been distributing because it's not the same as the last batch. We'll wait until we get the batch right and then we'll distribute. So
Smart.
kind
Yeah.
of a
Smart that you
perfectionist
guys are.
type thing he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about some of them, but I want to just touch on it a little more because I know that I think we were talking about this before we got on the air, but I think for anybody who is a home brewer, you make a good batch of beer. Opening a brewery crosses everybody's mind, right? So I'm just curious. Now that you guys are sort of, granted, you've been through sort of the ringer with the pandemic, but to kind of separate from that, what have been some of the biggest challenges or the biggest opportunities associated with sort of moving from home brewing into professional brewing? And that could be either from the business perspective and like the actual brewing perspective.
Well, I know my kitchen doesn't smell like grain anymore. There's a lot of people
That's
that
the
really
best part. What are you talking
really
about?
didn't like when I was doing that in the kitchen. But yeah, it's just having your kegs laying around and all that bottling equipment you have.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was
that's
nice
our
to
garage
kick it to
right
the
now.
curbside for a while. But other than that, it's like you go from your hobby to making it your job and everything, and it's more than just brewing the beer. There's all this other stuff.
There's so much more cleaning involved.
Way
bigger tanks,
bigger scales.
Yep.
Yeah. But I don't know. In some cases, it could be a little easier. You just you hook the machines up, you dump the chemicals in, and you press a button and walk away.
We did an episode on Dream Brew Caves, in which like where you want to brew and have people come for your beers and everything and try it. And that was the one thing I said I wanted what you guys have, but like a tenth of the scale. So like I can still make like 5 gallons,
Something more
but
automated.
it's all automated for me. So
they sell little like
done. I don't know how much it is, but so
yeah,
mine.
it's expensive. I've seen them now. I'm like,
You're one lottery ticket away from your. You got to win that Powerball.
Yeah, I know, right?
it's got a little pump. It's got the clean ball arm valve and everything. It's like a little. It's
Clean
exactly
face valves, yeah.
what I have, like what we have here. The giant fermenter is just like
I might have to
it's
look
like this
into
big.
this. My
It's like
wife
10
might not
gallons.
approve, but I might sneak it by.
Ask for Christmas
Look, my Christmas gift from everybody. Everyone just pitches in.
for 2 years.
For 2
You get
years.
nothing next year.
I'll accept that.
Anything else you guys wanted to add to that response? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard the cleaning.
Yeah,
It's kind of like that's
it's
the
about
big,
90%.
one of the big
What we're
pro.
doing.
Yeah, it's like it's 90% cleaning and then 5% business and 5% the actual brewing.
So the jump from going to homebrew to being a brewery, I mean, it's not. So we contracted a brewer to show us how to use the equipment, like the first go around, and then after we were shown how to brew off of it, it was like, oh, it's just like homebrew, except it's brewing. It's end of the day, you're doing the same things. You're just doing it at times 10 or times 200 scale. Yeah.
There's a lot more valves in there.
Yeah, a lot of valves.
You have to be careful which valve you turn, or you're gonna lose some beer.
And it's like, what's this valve for? I haven't used this
Right.
in the 3 months that we've been here, and I'm like, oh, it's a grist hydrator. I can hydrate my my grain going in. Yeah, so I guess it's not. The hardest part is consistency. I guess is once you can make a good batch of beer, but can you make it 20 times over?
Right.
I will admit, even in
and
my
not
batches,
just good 20 times, but the same beer 20
Exactly.
times.
Yes. I will admit, even in my small, like I personally brew. I do 4 gallon batches because after I re-rack, I get 3, which is where I want to be at.
You get
I
like 3 into the keg.
3 into
right?
the keg, yeah. So I even in those small batches, like you get slight differences and everything else, and I could tell. And sometimes I know you point out a few things. It's just like it's a slightly different in the flavors. I'm like, I don't know what I did differently. It's the same exact recipe, but like there's always that little something in there that will just adjust it.
But
Yeah,
to be
there's-
fair, you've also never brewed a beer 10 or 20 times.
That's true. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Maybe you'll nail it down eventually.
Yeah.
Like, what number of batches is never ended? Like,
And he really ruined brewing for me, like at home, with oxidation. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
did a little experiment. Like this stuff has never touched air. This one here that we can had a little bit of air in at one point, and they were definitely different. So now I'm rethinking everything about how I'm going to redo my batch at home.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something
You've been doing that.
I've been really trying to mind my oxidation because I've had a couple. I've had a couple of issues with like leaky kegs and stuff. So I'll come to like I've come home to a depressurized, empty CO2 in a totally depressurized keg, with like an air leak in it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I get it patched up as quickly as I can. But it was like I had one beer that was sort of a maltier, kind of a Midwest style IPA that went from something that I was very happy with to just zero hop character afterwards. It was like I got it
so
carved
sad.
back up, and it was not the same beer afterwards. I ended up just dumping it.
I had a
That's
similar.
disappointing. It does happen.
Yeah, but so I've been kind of getting crazy about minding oxidation after that because it was just a really crappy experience.
Yeah, you actually did for Christmas. You and Haley, your wife, bought me a whole bunch of different things so I can go from carboy to keg without anything.
You got him like a
touching.
close transfer system out of his carboys.
So, because that's one thing I never really bothered with making sure.
Yeah.
Not
It's
bother
something
with it.
If you don't know,
Yeah,
you don't know.
exactly. So probably next time you try some of my beers this year, you might taste a little slightly different.
But I think it's you hit the nail on the head. It's like you did that little experiment. It's like it's one thing to read about it online. It's one thing to hear about it. It's another when like you taste the difference. And
Right.
you go, I do not want that. I want this, not that.
Yeah. So just to add to your comments about like going from home brewing to owning a brewery, from my perspective, I was like, woohoo, we're getting rid of all the carboys, we're getting rid of the teaser, we're getting rid of all this mess, my house will be clean, yay, we'll get that brewery. Okay, it's not the case. In reality, it's just more carboys to test out something, to bring to the brewery,
Right.
to try something. It's like, okay, this didn't kind of work out.
The
like I
house became a
expected.
storage spot.
Yeah.
Now just instead of having like a bunch of homebrew gear at your house, you've got brewery gear at your house.
Yes.
That's funny. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, Mel is never gonna let you
No.
open one now.
When this place was originally falling down, all the beer was left over. So all the beer, it was like, and we were the only people who could drink it. So
We were
at
giving
home,
beer away. We were drinking as much as we could. We were, people up here, all the helpers, drink some beer, bring some beer
That's
home.
kind of fascinating. So they just sort of left it all here.
yeah, they.
Doors
All
were
here.
I'm about
It
to
was,
say, if I remember
walked
correctly, they
in,
just shut all the
we
doors
did-
and didn't tell anyone.
Turn the lights
Yeah.
out.
It was like one day. It was like one night it was open, and the next day it just never opened back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you guys could have had like a going out of business sale.
I
We
that
couldn't
would've been
sell
great.
it.
We couldn't sell it though.
Oh, really?
Couldn't
'Cause,
sell it.
yeah.
We had to drink it all,
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
darn.
terrible
We
idea.
drove so much down the street.
Oh my god.
Just pressurizing the keg.
Felt like a felt like a
I
cotton
dumped beer. It's
prohibition.
never fun.
The floor grates were just foaming up with beer. There's so much beer going down. We probably dumped 500 gallons in one day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know that's sad to hear, isn't
It
It
it?
hurts,
is.
but yay, but
Yes.
you know what? The result was a net increase in the amount of beer being drank on this location. So I think it's a win in the end.
Yeah.
So
Long
you
run.
had to dump that so that you could make new fresh stuff.
Right. It was definitely a
Moving
first world
forward.
problem.
Yeah. Ever upward, yeah. All right, well, I think that's probably a good spot to stop for a little break.
Yeah, we'll
right?
take a quick breather. We all need refills. I feel like.
We do all need that was kind of what I was going for. And then I think when we come back, we'll hone in a little bit more on the types of brews that you guys are making here, and talk a little bit more about that. So until then, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
They're empty, guys.
They don't.
Nice taking a sip.
Welcome to our new podcast. Welcome to our new podcast.
This isn't working.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to do it turn by turn.
Well, now that you mention it, we are a brand new RPG video game podcast.
Our very existence hinges on turn-based gaming.
So join us on the Turn by Turn podcast, where we'll be talking about
Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Shining Force, Mother, and so many more.
It's your turn to come and join us.
Hi there, I'm David,
And I'm Kate.
and we're the hosts of another Zelda podcast.
There are so many good podcasts out there, and some of them in particular concern the Legend of Zelda.
That's right, Kate, and we are another one of them. That is actually the name of our show, Another
Yes.
Zelda podcast.
And in our show in particular, we talk about some of our favorite dungeons, characters, boss battles. We have top 10 lists.
Yeah, we do deep dives on game design and production aspects of the different Zelda games.
And we talk about our own experiences. We do some review episodes, talk about our challenges, our struggles, and our victories.
That's right. Really just almost anything that has to do with Zelda, we like to talk about it. A new episode comes out every other Friday, and you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube.
And you can also check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
That's right. All right, we will see you there.
Okay, bye.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemandsit.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
All right, and we are back, and we're gonna take a little transition away from the sort of more general aspects of the brewery and into the beer itself. So the first thing I noticed when I looked at the menu was the Dunkelweizen, and the second was the Hefeweizen. I'm a big fan of both of those styles. They were the first two I tried when we came in. They were both excellent. So nice work there, but I think in general, I found that you guys have a neat selection of different beer styles on tap, and I really appreciate seeing some more underrepresented styles like that on draft, because I know in a lot of other breweries, at least locally here, you don't see a lot of those sorts of beers. I'm drinking a brown ale now, another thing I don't really see a lot like right now in 2021. So I want to ask you, when you're deciding which beers to make, how do you balance popular demand for certain styles like New England IPAs, sour beers, with your personal brewing interests and some of your favorite styles?
All right, so we actually are making a sour right now. We have a sour done.
It is very good.
Kind of match that.
That was our most recent request via Facebook.
Yeah, we actually did a poll
really?
and asked people what they wanted, because we were like, we don't know what to make.
Give the people what they want.
What do the people want? The people
They are paying to keep the lights on.
The people wanted a sour.
People wanted a sour, and we're gonna do a hazy next. But
that would have been my guess. We want a hazy. We already have one. Then we want another one.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the current climate right now.
Yeah. And then we made recipes that we used to homebrew. Like I used to homebrew a blonde, but it's not. We stopped making that actually. And I really wanted a good Irish red, just personally. So I made a good Irish red. And the Hefeweizen. It was weird because the Hefeweizen.
It was from Abigail. Abigail wanted
Abigail wanted a.
Because she went to
my
Germany
sister.
and then she wanted a Hefeweizen. She loves Hefeweizen.
Well, no. They asked. Tapta wanted a wheat beer. Abby wanted a Hefeweizen. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make a wheat beer. There's this yeast. There's some random yeast company. It was called Bowie Brew. It's from Australia, I think.
That's random.
Yeah.
They really should be from Hawaii.
I was like, oh yeah, Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah, Australia. It's got a kangaroo on it. And they had a yeast called yeast, and it just said good for Hefeweizens and whip beers. So when I was making the beer, I'm like, do I put coriander in it and hope it turns out like a whip beer? Do I not? So I put the coriander in it. It ended up totally taking over a clove flavor. So I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's Hefeweizen. So we just called it a Hefeweizen. People are like, what's that? What's that flavor in there? Yeah.
I think that's a really, I did definitely get it. And it has that very strong, like, clovey yeast thing to it, which that's my favorite thing. Now, I know we haven't brewed it yet because my wife and I brew together, and she hates yeast-forward beers. Hefeweizen, hate it. Dunkelweizen, hate it. Belgian beers, hate them. Those are, like, my favorites. So we struggle with that.
The hazies, too, because...
it's the thing is, it's not even about that.
There's a lot of yeast.
No, but you're right, because a lot of those that I named are also kind of high wheat beers, which also have that haze. So I wouldn't say she's huge on it. She'll tolerate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely got that, and like I said, that to me is not like a style that is super in right now. So it's nice to see it, and I do think that there's kind of a population of brewers that appreciate, it's like, it would be dumb not to have a New England, or two on tap.
Right,
But on the other hand, I think a lot of times people come in wanting something they haven't seen in a while. I think the variety really, at least for me, when I walk into a brewery and I see beer styles that aren't super popular at the moment, it's refreshing. That's the one that I'm actually going to get.
And I like to make those beers as well, because if I go to a beer store, craft beer store somewhere, they're not always going to have, like, you can hardly find a brown ale, you can hardly find an Irish red. And so,
that's
and
interesting.
Yeah,
you're kind of filling niches that that cans and bottles don't. Basically, yeah.
Well, they're there. It's just sometimes I'll get them. I won't always like them that much. I don't
Sure,
want
yeah.
I don't want to be rude. I'm not going to name any names, but I'll make it.
I think that's a great place to start too. Like when we're home brewing, a lot of times I'll start from that where it's like. For instance, like Haley and I went to Germany when I graduated college, and we went to Cologne, and we got to have a lot of like German Kolsch's.
That's nice.
They were delicious. It was it was like a cool historical thing. I have really fond memories of that. So like a lot of American breweries make Kolsch's, but a lot of them taste like, for lack of a better term, like kind of Americanized. They take factors like the weediness or something or other, and they kind of exaggerate it. And so we brewed one of those because it was the same thing. It was like, well, the ones that are available aren't quite hitting this. They're not scratching this itch for me. So then I'm going to try and see if I can scratch it myself.
There's actually a Round. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're in like southwest Michigan. Round Barn Brewing Company. Their number one selling beer is a Kolsch.
Really? I haven't tried it.
I've heard of Round Barn.
It's really good.
I haven't. Okay. Well, I'll have to check it out.
I mean, Rich always has something. Our father-in-law. We go over there and he'll have a stock beer fridge of bottles and cans, and like, what's this brewery? Oh, it's like some random thing I found at Costco. So I bought the case. I'm like, I haven't even heard of this. Okay.
Maybe someday he'll come home with some GravCap.
Maybe.
So popular demand aside and the interests of family and friends aside, Evan, this question is for you specifically. Right. What are some of your favorite styles to drink and brew?
Always IPA. It's always a go-to. I kind of have to be like, well, maybe I should slow down on the IPAs and drink something like a brown ale, just so I can, have a brown ale on my palate, and I know, like, this is a brown ale.
Sort of stay well-rounded,
Yeah. Make myself more well-rounded. I'll generally avoid Hefeweizens if I make one. And just yeasty beers, I guess. But
it's a love-or-hate thing. Yeah. It's a very strong character.
I mean, I can drink a beer and be like, oh, this is good for its style. That doesn't mean I like it or I want to keep drinking it.
I'm the same.
Like,
I am definitely the
same. I did good with that, and I'll leave it there and focus on my ideas.
So what, if you could make your perfect IPA, would it be like a hazy or like a New England? Would it be like a kind of pale West Coast? Would it be sort of a maltier Midwest kind of IPA? What's your ideal?
So generally hop forward, really crisp and cleanish body. I'd like some residual sweetness, and that's what I'm trying to do with this Never Ending. I've probably made it like 20 times, and I keep tweaking the recipe as I go. Small increments.
Because it sounds like basically for you, like you're making an idealized version of your favorite beer style. You'd think it would take a long time to nail down.
Yeah.
I can see that. How about you guys? Do either of you want to answer that same question? Tom, I know you said you brewed for a long time. What are some of your favorite styles to brew up?
Well, the funny thing is, if I were going to do something, my favorite style has always been IPAs. More recently, the hazies. I was doing a lot of hazies before we came here. The New England IPA, the Never Ending, we kind of based it off one of my old recipes, but we completely changed the hop schedule.
Depending on who you ask, it's based off of one of your old recipes.
I got a thick book at home of all the recipes.
Oh, cool.
If I were to do something different, new besides the beer at this point, I want to do a mead right now.
I do mead. I actually brewed mead a while ago, and I still do every so often.
Yeah.
I do a batch. I do like a batch a year, but it's only like a gallon batch, so I get about 3/5 or so. The big one that I've done is an elderberry fig. It's like a rich purple color.
Yeah.
And then another. Yeah. I also just did this last year. I call it a Mirorita. So instead of honey, I use agave.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't realize this when I first did it. I literally made tequila, but fermented it instead of distilled it. And technically I did it legally. So if you're listening, government, I did it legally. You can ferment tequila, and it's not couldn't be quite as strong. It's still only like 13% or something like that. But like, so pretty much, yeah. And then I didn't add any other adjuncts to it. I think I put a little lime juice in there to give it that margarita flavor. And it turned out really well. I'm letting it age right now. It's probably about 6 months aged right now. I made it earlier. I made it pretty early last year. So it's been sitting in the closet for a while. And I do a coffee mead as well, actually.
A coffee mead?
Yeah, so instead of water, I'm giving away recipes. I don't know if I like this or not.
You're giving away ideas, Ryan. They're not getting your your honey
So
bill.
how many pounds are you using there?
Hold on, let me get my notebook out.
So instead of water, I use cold brew. So there's it's cold brew coffee, and then I warm it up.
This one's
honey
good. I like this a lot.
And then let it go. And I don't add anything else. I think I sometimes I add like a little vanilla depending on how the flavor turns out, without anything. But it's turned out really well. So those are probably my big ones that I do.
I'll mess with something this summer.
It is so easy to do. Like I have done mango, I've done raspberry, I've done green tea, which didn't turn out great. But I'm trying to think of flavors that go with honey, and it's just like, okay, what flavors mimic it, or what flavors go with it? So I was like green tea. I'm like fruits. That's why I went with coffee a little bit because it's a little sweeter.
Why not try nuts?
I mean, why not?
Why
not?
I'm going to turn that back on you. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
So I say mead.
We'll come back.
Mead is so easy
we'll
because
come
it's water,
back
honey,
in the fall, and
done.
I expect to see a nutty
mead.
Oh, we're doing a mead with nuts in them now?
Apparently, hey, it was your idea.
You heard it first,
Brew
everybody.
meads. I'm just
You
saying.
heard it here first.
So
GravCap Brewing.
I actually, this is going off script a little bit, but this is something I wanted to cover eventually anyway. I noticed on your guys' online menu, and here there were even a couple that weren't listed online, that you guys offer some wines, ciders. I see here you've got a seltzer on tap. Now, I love beer, but I always appreciate when breweries offer these sorts of other options. I think it's great for, a friend group comes to a brewery and there's one person that doesn't really care for beer. It's really nice for them when they have other things they can try.
Right.
Like Theresa, I know you said previously you might have been one of those people who would have been pleased to see wine on a beer menu,
I would
right?
have been, yeah, absolutely. So I think the wine came from my influence.
Yeah, absolutely did.
Yeah, and I just think it's a really nice way to sort of round out the menu. So you've said you maybe want to do a little meat. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about how those sorts of processes differ from your beer brewing process? Like what do things translate pretty well? Is it like a totally different thing?
We're talking about mead now, right?
Just basically
mead, wine.
any of the non-beer things that you guys currently offer.
Well, the seltzer definitely translates with the beer, for sure.
The seltzer is considered beer. We use corn sugar to make it.
I've heard that legally it's beer because
it's
like
considered beer
fermented
because
sugar drink.
corn sugar is a grain substitute. Therefore, you can consider it a malted beverage.
But if you were to just take water and pour vodka in it and carbonate that, legally you'd have to sell it under a different license.
Yeah, that's
liquor.
Right.
It's weird.
See, that's how I plan on making my seltzer. I'm not going to
Okay.
go. I'm just going to be like vodka,
I
add
found that
water,
fascinating.
ABV, perfect, carbonate, done.
Yep.
Because I had heard that when this seltzer thing blew up, I had heard that everyone was like fermenting them. And I was like, why? Just pour a fifth of Smirnoff into your water and you're good to go. But I found that really fascinating that it's just the legal thing.
Yeah, it's a legality thing. But yeah, the seltzer we make just by, we'll ferment corn sugar with a wine yeast and then flavor it, carbonate it.
Flavor it after it's done fermenting.
Yeah.
The wine basically is the same process, similar process too. I mean, you're getting your juice. We're getting juice concentrate. We're not growing our own grapes or anything like that. But
that might be a bit of an overreach.
in
the downtown.
But the process is very similar.
But the wines and ciders are definitely made on a smaller scale. The fermenters we have back there are 200 gallons. So
200 gallons.
A particular wine would be a lot to fill. So
I can see that. That definitely makes sense. So to sort of build off that a little bit, your description, I noticed on, and actually, well, I'll just say we talked about this a little bit off the air before we started recording, that you guys had plans to sort of get into distilling as well. You've even got a little space in the building cordoned off for that. That's pretty awesome. Do you have any idea kind of what that's going to look like, what the timeline is for that? How deep have you guys dug into that?
Well, we've been filling out paperwork. The list of questions is long. The answers they want are very specific, and unless you fill that in exactly how they're looking, you get a little rejection here and there. We stopped spending during COVID to make sure we could, make it through everything.
Probably smart.
And it wasn't even just COVID. We had road construction here in 24. This main road was closed all last year.
Oh, that looks like fresh.
You guys have had all the luck.
At least they coincided,
Yeah, it went quarantine, and then we're back open at half capacity, and then the road got ripped up, and then as soon as the road got fixed, we were back in quarantine, and now we're open again, but at 25%.
So the road should be closing soon.
Yeah, sure.
You don't have to worry about that for at least another year,
Yeah.
6 months,
Yeah.
like that.
We're still working on the paperwork. It's moving forward. We're looking at probably just a small 80-gallon still over here in the tasting room. So we're just going to focus on alcohol manufacturing. We don't want a kitchen. People are allowed to bring food in from other restaurants.
Yeah.
Because of the license we have. We're specifically a manufacturer with a tasting room.
Okay.
So that's the license we want. I don't
makes
want
sense.
to have to do any of this other.
Honestly,
stuff.
I've always found it kind of cool. Like Dragon Meat and Warren you're used to, at least for a long time, do the same thing where it was just bring your own food. And it was kind of cool. It sort of creates this relationship between you guys and all the local restaurants and stuff.
We have a lot of restaurants.
Yeah,
in town. I don't want to
you sort of
compete
bring
with
them. Yeah, you
you
sort of
know?
are bringing them service, and especially if you're not interested in food.
Well, we're that place they stop before they go to dinner and
Yeah,
after
sure.
dinner
Yeah.
to have a drink.
Right.
They want to hang out. We're not rushing people in and out here, trying to turn and burn a table for a waitress or anything so they can get the next meal. And it's a nice hangout we've created here.
It really is a cool
No,
space.
it's a great setup.
I love the vibe you guys have going.
Thanks.
Now, going back to the distillery, what are you guys planning on doing?
Well, we'll start with the white stuff.
Okay.
We'll be doing vodkas, tequila, rums, gins. Yeah, we'll make a stab with an absinthe over here.
Ooh, all right. I'm
I'm
about that.
not saying I'm in.
I'm
I was
about
waiting
that.
for gin. You said white. I'm like gin. Yes. I'm in.
But as far as other stuff goes, now whiskeys are going to take some time to age.
Oh yeah.
And we got to wait a little bit of time for that.
I want to throw this in, but I don't know, on the other side, by the back of the brewery. So there's that wall right there by the dartboard. On the other side is the brew room. If we had a wall that's on that little, I don't know what it's called. If the wall came out this way, people understand if they're listening.
They know. Don't worry, they know. Imagination.
As long as they come here, I'm trying to explain it.
So basically, if you kind of took a quarter of your space and cordoned it off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we walled it off over here and came this way, we could put, and the glycol lines in the brew room almost come to that wall. We can knock that wall down, we can put fermenters on that side of the wall on this side, and there's a floor drain already there. And then we could
where our
throw,
shuffleboard table currently sits, we could probably put about 5 or 6 more fermenters.
So if we ever wanted to do more distribution, we could do that, and then
a little bit more
we
working
plan on
space.
doing all the mashing for the liquor in the same mash tun, make it like a dual purpose.
Oh, very cool,
Hopefully, and then ferment out of the same fermenters, and then we could probably transfer to this room as long as it's close enough. I don't know the legalities of all of it. It's just an idea, though.
That I would assume is the biggest headache, is just figuring out how to kind of keep up with regulations.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I've heard that as soon as you go to liquor, things get a lot more complicated.
They're
It's
a lot
super-
more complicated, especially if we don't have food. It's like a bigger deal.
They make it harder on you.
Well, Ryan, to return to beer for a second, I've sort of had the chance to talk about all of my sort of, two style beers, but I know that you tried a couple of more off the wall ones a little earlier. Do you want to maybe ask some questions about that?
My, I guess, gimmick is I love to try to find something that hasn't been done. So
It's not a gimmick, it's just who he is
It's
as a
who I
person.
am.
He
So-
can't make a beer with 4 ingredients. There's always a fifth. There's always a fifth.
So it's like, so for some of my beers, like we talked about mead, so I did a couple meads like that. But like with beers, I did a cucumber kolsch, I've done a white chocolate coconut coffee ale. So bean flicker.
Better than it sounds.
It's about to say bean
sounds
flicker,
pretty good.
add coconut and white chocolate. So
Yeah, that
that
sounds
adds a little
good.
more to it.
I'm a fan of bean flicker.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I love
So,
Better out
so
of cans than bottles.
One of the
Really?
few, yeah.
okay. I've only tried. I've tried it in bottles. I think you got me some cans. I haven't tried them yet. You bought me some cans last time I was over.
You haven't had. If
I have
those
so
were
many
mine,
beers.
they would have been gone
I have
7
other beers.
days after you. Okay.
It's-
Okay. Anyway, ask your
Anyways.
question, Rob.
All right, so I had the Princess Peach, great beer. I liked a little bit of the spice in there. The peach is a perfect balance. But I want to know, what is the most off the wall flavors that you have put in a beer, whether here in the brewery or homebrew as well? Because I do, like I said, I do weird things. I try to find something that I haven't done.
Personally, have really stuck to traditional, and
Amen, brother.
I play with the hops more than anything. You know, that's because with the extract, I was focusing on the hops and not the grain bill as much. So
Yeah, I would say we're more traditional. We're more like the 4 or 5 flavors.
I have
and,
no.
Let's keep it.
Yeah, we'll do the German. I forgot the name of the wall. But
Ryan Heiskable.
Yeah, Ryan Heiskable.
Yeah.
And we might add like one fruit or here's coffee. Or,
Okay.
You know,
No,
we'll go too
I
off the
always like
walls.
to ask
I
because I know in today's world with so many breweries, not even just in the state but across the country, everyone's doing the same thing and everyone's trying to find that weird little niche. Like I've had a Neapolitan porter. I've had it's like these crazy flavors that come out.
I had it.
I liked it. Wasn't bad. Like I got all 3 flavors and it was very unique. But like
The best compliment you can give a beer. It wasn't that bad.
I just like to see what else
Unfortunately,
people
it
put
was
in
warm
there.
and flat when I drank.
Oh, that's
it
that.
got served that way.
I had it nitroed when I went to a little brew
Yes,
hub,
I had
and
it
it's better. It's so much better than
No,
nitro.
I had
Ooh,
that
that sounds
really.
good.
Oh,
Why was it warm?
I'm gonna say, why was it warm?
Sounds like a personal
I
problem.
don't know. It was. We were up in Frankenmuth and we stopped in some bar up there. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. And of course, I tried it. And, I mean, I could taste the flavors in it, but the beer itself wasn't presented well. No fault of the brewery, by the way. You know, it's how
More the brew hubs
Place
that
it's
super
served.
cold. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just gotta give it another chance. They do can it, so like you can't
Okay.
find. I found it at Meyer around us. So like, you
I'm
can't
assuming
find
we're
it.
talking about the same one.
Yeah, I forgot what brewery did it now off the top of my head. But
Google it.
Google it, yeah.
You'll
But yeah,
find
no,
it.
I'd say we're more traditional, so far.
Nothing wrong with that.
We'll get out there and we'll throw something in there now and then, but
like I was.
I use margarita mix to fermented beer.
What?
It's okay.
I would say that's
It's also
also
good
well.
for that Mexican type of.
There you go.
I don't think that's beer. I think that's prison beach.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Well, I was telling Teresa earlier. I actually just did I can say it because they won't hear by the time it comes out when we record, but I just did a peppered ale.
That's the season finale.
I know, but they will record it by the time they hear it.
I see. Yeah.
They'll be good. Don't worry.
You're good.
So I did a pepper ale. So like it was a little different. I did a tincture of both one Serrano and one Poblano, and then added it into just a regular ale. Nothing too fancy about it, and that was it. Like it wasn't a crazy 5th ingredient, but it was just a little.
I'm
addition
actually
that's
kind of
bigger.
a sucker for like spicy beers like that.
That was runner up to the sour ale that we did the Facebook.
Yeah.
poll.
Oh really?
Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah,
little
it's
thing to
probably
find.
coming down.
That's
like,
so.
It's
it might
nice.
be coming out.
So,
So.
yeah.
Is that a hint that it's
what
already
else?
coming?
What,
Or
no,
okay.
no.
what were like
I
the other
think
options on that? What were like the other choices people could pick from?
No,
It was whatever they
Oh,
wanted.
just pick your own.
Oh,
Jesus.
okay.
Yeah.
It must have been a nightmare to sort through.
Well, I was just kind of like skimmed and like I'm seeing a lot of sour.
Oh,
pop
okay,
up,
gotcha.
you know. It was overwhelmingly.
Yeah,
I didn't
it was
see it. It was
overwhelmingly sour.
Direct messages.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
People were
Instagram and
some of them
Facebook.
didn't even.
I was
post
thinking it
on
was like one of those like pick one of the 4.
No, it's
We
whatever you
probably
want.
should have done that. That
We'll take a
might
stab
have been a
at
better
it.
idea.
Hey, you try. Well, that's like kind of part of the fun of being a brewery is like it's more than home brewing. But on the other hand, if something doesn't work out, you only have to commit to one batch of it. You don't have to distribute everything you make. You can kind of try some stuff out here. So you'll also have a butter beer on tap, which I find quite interesting. Is that your own recipe? What butter beer is not a thing that Like that, it was invented in a fantasy world,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So what is your guys' version of butterbeer?
Have you ever tried it?
No.
I have not, actually.
It's actually, do you like butterscotch?
I do like butterscotch.
Hit or miss.
All right. I always like butterscotch as like pudding and stuff like that growing up, right? So
If I'm having a dessert, I love butterscotch.
yeah, sure. We were down at Universal Studios in Florida, and you go to the magical wizarding world, and you're walking around, and you see these lines, and I'm like, what the hell are these people standing in line for, right? And they were slushies. So my son, my little one, was like, come on, we got to get one of these.
I thought it was you. Come on.
It's butterbeer. So we get it to the front, and I'm like, all right, we'll get the slushy thing. And I took a sip of it, and I'm like, oh my God, why don't they distribute this stuff?
Well, that's how they get you to come in.
No, it was really, really good. So I'm like, why don't they just
doing this?
Yeah. So then when we got this whole thing going, we bought the slushy machine up there for our wines and ciders in the summer. So we'll put one of those on, depending on what day it is or how nice it's going to be, we'll put something different. And I remember having the butterscotch beer, and I'm like, oh my God. And I found a recipe for it, and we put it on there. And I have had families drive for like an hour because they know we've had butterbeer.
Yeah.
And they want to have their kids come here and try the butterbeer.
And that's great because we were like we were talking about earlier, having other options besides this beer. Like having that non-alcoholic is very good to have for the kids, just to bring them in and everyone else.
Yeah, it like gives it when a family comes in, it gives everybody something fun they can try. It's not like just for mom and dad.
Right.
Yeah, we're super kid friendly. We have lots of kids coming in.
We have Mario Kart Wednesday.
Yeah, we do.
What?
I might come for that.
Is that just for kids? Because that sounds
So
fun.
it was
I could go to that.
originally to bring people in my age, because a lot of people my age play Mario Kart.
Yeah.
They're competitive with it, and the winner gets all of the money that was
we
paid
do a
for
$5
to get in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
nice.
like the jackpot was $50 one time, and it's all these little kids. And then here's my cousin's friend, and they're 30.
Get out of my way, kid!
Send in the ringers.
They're like, we won.
Like,
Oh man.
yeah.
Yeah, that happens every Wednesday.
Booyah, Johnny! Johnny's like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Just wanted to play Mario.
That was the inspiration for the name Princess Peach. I'm waiting
Oh,
for
nice.
Nintendo to send a cease and desist letter.
They will, though.
They will.
Hopefully this doesn't get too many views.
That's okay because
They are very litigious.
We'll change the name to Peach and Desist.
There you go.
There you go.
We're just waiting for it.
Oh, I love
I'm
it.
gonna hang that right above the urinal.
Yeah, actually, you kind of need to wait for it. You kind of need to induce that to happen just so you can use that name.
So and then you can
Good.
explain like, why'd you call that? Well, let me tell you a story.
Right, yeah.
Well, let's hop back. I got a couple questions involving brewing. So, my first question is mainly for you two gentlemen because you brew. What was the first beer you actually brewed? Home brewed. I know it's going back a little ways, but
I know exactly what it was. A Belgian style, and
well, you went big.
it was awful. So me and two other buddies get together.
He went, don't worry if the yeast go crazy, I think is what he was going for.
No, we did our little brew thing, and the brew day went, okay, I guess. And then, we bottled everything when it was done fermenting, and everybody got their own little 4-pack to take home, because that's about how much beer was left after we did our first batch. And it was really bad. Something had happened, and it was infected.
Oh, no.
And every beer you drank, you were guaranteed to spend the next couple hours on the toilet.
Oh,
man. And it almost completely turned me off from brewing.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So I had a few
so
friends reach out and say the same thing to me.
Yeah.
There was no extracts or anything back then either. It was like
it was just
everything.
I did a Belgian once,
Right.
and my roommate forgot to put the priming sugar in when we bottled it. And then, so
They had a bunch
completely
of
flat.
could have been good Belgian beer. You guys need one of those spritzers they have now where you can like carbonate your water. Just
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So I did a Belgian once, and it tastes good. It had no issues. I cooked with it quite a few times, but it was just
gonna say
50 bottles.
But
of flat
did it
beer.
though? Does flat beer taste good?
I mean,
Well, yeah.
it does.
You
have flat
could
beer.
have just cracked them all open, dumped them all back into a 5-gallon.
Yeah, we thought about that.
Reprimed
afterwards. Yeah, like a
Maybe.
few years
Sounds like
later,
pain in the
someone
ass.
said the same thing to me. I'm like, son of a. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could risk contamination.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
It's
made
better
me
than
real
flat beer.
nervous.
And what about you? What was your first one?
God, I think it was an Irish Red.
Irish Red? Nice.
Yeah.
That was actually my first one. Was an Irish Red. It was a kit. So
yeah, it was good.
I bought a kit from a local brew store near us, and it was a vanilla Irish Red. It was very good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was the first.
Was
one
that
we
your
ever-
edition or was that the kit?
That's the kit. That was the
Okay.
kit. So I did not put.
They
I did not put
ruined
the fifth
you.
ingredient. Yeah, I know. That's
I
not
feel
the.
like a vanilla white chocolate Irish Red would be good.
That would be
A
really
little
good.
higher.
I'll look
caramel
out for
notes.
that. In,
Write that
I'm
down
not
real
making
quick.
it,
on
but
tap
you
in
guys can make it.
2022.
And it. So first when you brewed, what was the first recipe you actually made yourself?
Oh. Yeah, that was when I just started buying 55 or the 25 pound, or was it 45 pounds just of extract. I remember doing
Okay.
that. It was just a typical IPA.
Okay.
Straight out, smooth, it was easy. Just a classic IPA.
Okay.
But yeah, first bulk ingredients, and I just started, my bottom drawer, my fridge, all the beers disappeared, all the meat disappeared. It was all hops and yeast in there after that.
Right. You're like, fridge is full, but someone's like, what do you have to eat? I'm like, we've got some mac and cheese
Got an
and minute
ounce of
rice. Yeah,
That's how
about
it all
it.
started.
That was actually my first recipe. Actually, I made a session IPA with tangerine peels.
Oh, nice.
So that was the first one I made.
Wow, that's good.
Evan, what about you?
Oh boy.
Stereo.
Nice.
This is before I even knew like brewing apps existed, so I wanted to make like a light beer because that's something he never made, and I like light beers here and there, so I tried making like
they have a place. They really
They
do.
do.
yeah, I tried making like a Citra, like almost session IPA, I guess I would say
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But back then I didn't have a specific style in mind. I was like, I like these Citra hops. And I like this malt, and I'm just gonna
I love citrus.
throw whatever in at different amounts.
Just gonna see what happens.
It ended up being a Citra Pale Ale, and the mash when I had terrible conversion. It was like 3%, 3.5% in it. I remember it tasting.
It was like double
off.
sessionable, yeah.
Yeah, it was like I think it was just oxidized all hell.
Ooh.
Could be,
like
yeah.
I'm like sloshing around.
Yeah.
Shit, and it wasn't terrible, but it was certainly.
It was like at the time it was great, and now you look back and you're like, that was not a good beer.
Yeah, exactly. I could not sell
remember,
that.
the first beer I made was a cream ale made from a kit on my parents' electric stove. It was a full 5-gallon batch. It took us 2.5 hours to reach boiling. We had to heat the beer up for 2.5 hours, and it was like we just put so much time into it. We tried it, and we were like, it's pretty okay. And now I'm like, that was not a good beer. Like, there's no way. It wasn't
just
good.
Convince yourself.
But we put so much time, and we were like, yes, I can drink all of this and not dump any of it. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, playing off those actually, with our very first episode we put out was called Misadventures, in which we kind of went back and forth with stuff that happened to us when we were brewing. We look back on. We can
Ryan
laugh,
has a
but
trend of exploding.
I have a trend of exploding
glassware.
thing. Yes. So
I had a leak.
You had a leak, yeah.
A fairly bad one.
But I want to ask, like, through home brewing and maybe even here, what's a misadventure you had? Whether it's like you missed, like I was talking about not putting the priming sugar into that beer. It's like that was a misadventure for us. You talk about
I flooded
taking
my
3
kitchen
about
full of hose water because we didn't realize that our spigot was leaking into the house. While we were chilling, we had it going for like 10 minutes. We're like, this is great. Then I walked in and just sploosh in about an inch of water. We were like, oh dear.
So
grab all the towels.
Yeah. So what's a misadventure you had, whether it's an issue with brewing or bottling or whatever?
The worst thing that I've really ever had happen during the brew process was the boiler.
Oh.
We walked outside for a few minutes to like take a breather, hung out and talked for a few minutes, came back inside and why is the floor all wet? You notice the whole pot is just, I think, 75% of what was in there.
It's like one of those baking soda volcanoes.
Exactly
I finally had that happen to me actually when I was brewing this last batch. I caught it right at the second, but like still just went over.
Yeah, we didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And every bit of it that got out did. It was a mess.
That's hard to clean up too.
Yeah, it is.
It's basically simple syrup at that point.
Right, yeah. And I mean, when you're in the basement, maybe you got a drain or something, but no, there's a wood-floored kitchen.
Oh,
Right in the kitchen where we're both walking.
My floor was never cleaner in my kitchen than when I was brewing at home because all the stuff down there, we really did.
I really spilled a lot of shit on that floor and had to clean it up. So.
And what about you? What's a misadventure?
For me, it's always a stuck sparge for some reason. That's fine. Yeah.
Those are frustrating, elongated misadventures.
That's here.
We had that.
Yeah.
No, at home too. Yeah. Not stuck sparge.
So for anyone who's not a brewer, do you want to just kind of explain in like simple terms what the sparge step is?
It's like, so when you're getting the wort out of when you're getting the sugar water, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, you've gotten all the sugars out of your grain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're transferring to your boil kettle. Boil. I'm trying to layman's terms.
Yeah.
But all the grain just compacts on the grates.
In best case, it makes a filter. Worst case, it makes a plug.
Yeah, it just plugs, and you're sitting there like, well, there goes my Vorloff. I Vorloff. It's perfectly clear, and now I gotta blow CO2 or air, blast the shit up, and hopefully it goes. Yeah, it turned out to be a simple problem of just open the pipe slowly or turn the valve slowly so you don't get a stuck sparge and transfer slow. That was it.
Yeah, just kind of slow down the flow so you don't drag all the grain in.
It doesn't.
Well, I can remember though. You guys remember you guys carbonating the bottles and then the bottles exploding?
Oh,
remember that? I thought there was a bomb going on.
Yeah.
And just all these bottles just.
Yeah.
Well, at least they blew up
We've
that
got
way
a
and not
12-pack
this
of
way.
bottled beer in the.
Oh, they went down.
Nobody has to hold it.
Right, yeah.
If you just touch it with a bottle opener, it would explode. It was all over the ceiling.
That was one of my misadventures we talked about. I did a mead, and I had it in one of those Grolsch bottles, so it's like a little pop top. And I had the in-laws over, and we were playing some cards, and I didn't realize that. I'm like, here, you should try this. It was a 1 liter bottle full. I had that much left over.
Yeah.
The rest of it was all me and kitchen was covered.
Oh, no.
The bit that was left over was flat.
Right?
No, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Well, it was mead, so didn't have to be really super carbonated. But I was trying to get as much into the fist every time I did it, so I was getting yeast, and so it just kept eating and in the Grolsch bottle, and it finally just popped. So it was fun to clean up. And I got one more actually before you go to the next one, real quick.
Okay, go for it.
Because we're novices, and a lot of people that listen are novices or
we are amateurs.
Sorry. And those also listening are either thinking about it or just starting as well. What advice would you give someone that's fresh into home brewing?
What? Fresh into home?
Yeah.
Extracts. Brewing kegs.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Start simple.
Work your way up. Don't try to immediately go into all grain. You don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
I definitely fell into that trap because I had brewed with a more experienced friend for a while. So when my wife and I started trying to do it alone, I just got into this funk of overthinking and overcomplicating everything because we were trying to go we did brew in a bag, which is a lot simpler, but there's more to think about than extract for sure. There's a whole step that gets cut out. And for a while, it was just not fun because it was so complicated until we kind of got a handle on it.
Yeah, I'd say probably yeast is the number one thing. Without the yeast, you're just going to have Kool-Aid. Make it your friend, learn how to use it, know what it does, what it can tolerate.
Don't cut corners on yeast.
Yeah.
Or do and pray. We do that here sometimes.
Cut corners, cut corners armed with information, going, this is probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's solid advice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys again for bringing us here. I don't know about you, Ryan, but I love the beer I had. I had a great experience. We really appreciate all three of you sitting down to take the time to talk with us. So anyone in the Metro Detroit area who finds themselves in Oxford, I would definitely say it's worth checking out this brewery. It's got a super cool vibe. You've had a chance to kind of meet the owners and the brewer. They're great. Do you guys sort of, I'll give you kind of a chance to just sort of plug yourselves. Are there other anywhere people can find your beer? If people are interested, they want to support the brewery, buy merch, just sort of where can people find you?
On the web, you can start at GravCapBrewing.com.
Look us up on Facebook and Instagram. GravCap Brewing or Gravel Capital Brewing.
Vote for one of the upcoming polls.
Yes.
Our physical address is 14 North Washington in Oxford. We're on the northeast quadrant, a little further up.
We're about to start putting our Never Ending in cans. It's going to be at Lake Orion. No, not Lake Orion. Yeah, Lake Orion Beer Keg Wine. And then Michelle Gas Station in Oxford. It used to be called Boom Buzz for people who live here.
Yeah, Beer World and M15.
Yep, at Beer World and M15. And then
probably tasted on tap over at Knapp's, Red Knapp's here in Oxford. G's Pizzeria down on Lake Orion.
And that's about it. That's what we got right now.
It's our start. So.
I mean, awesome, for being so young, like that's a good reach. Still.
It's a solid start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
who knows? Maybe people will listen to this, getting through the backlog in like 2027, and they'll be like, I can get this in California.
That'd be a dream come true.
All right, yeah. So again, this was great. Thank you again. If anyone is interested in the brewery, you guys can check them out. They just told you where. If you want to check our podcast out, if you want to chip in your thoughts on our first sip, you want to talk about the beer that made you fall in love with craft beer,
yes,
or anything else, you can find us at Brewthers-In-Law on Twitter, and you can also find us at our website, Brewthers-In-Law.com. And then Ryan, where else can people find you on Twitter?
Twitter, I have my personal one, which is Rainbow Kuhn, and then my brewing stuff is Wise Old Owls Brew, and I do a small blog on the side, which is called hopbrewandblog.com.
Right? Yeah. You can find me in none of those places.
Yeah. Where do you get you on the web?
Yeah. So with that said, like I said, we've had a great time here. It's been great to meet you guys, and cheers.
Cheers, everybody. I had beer. I switched my cup.
As long as you get a sip, you're all right. Yeah.